As a group, myself, Glenn, Benjamin and Mustafa will be covering the built implications on the uptake of solar and P2P energy, which is our specialty area. We're architects, so we like to know how this works and how it works in together. We're excited to provide these findings through our observational statistics. We come from a school that prides itself on its practicality and design. So we've really enjoyed embracing Vivek Vihar and Vishali's unique design opportunities. So I'll be having a look at the particular building typologies. Glenn will be following by having a look at particular overshadowing. We'll then follow on, having a look at particular infrastructure opportunities and environmental context, whilst Mustafa will be touching on our points that we were discussing earlier about alternative solar methods and their particular implications with the built environment. So building typology, right into it. So Delhi, I mean, you know, you live here, it's one of the most dense places in the world. The density itself, 11,297 per square kilometre. That's a lot of people. So for us, it was no surprise that the apartment typology was the clear leader in our observations here. This is quite important to us because it can lead us to come to a few conclusions and reasons as to why these are the particular typologies being included in this area. Low maintenance costs. With a group where there's a lot of people living, you can come in, you have a single owner for a building or a couple of owners in a building. It makes it quite easy, quite affordable to maintain an apartment block. It has fantastic cultural viability for Delhi. This is easily one of the most social cities that I've ever experienced. So it makes great sense to me that something like the apartment block is the most apparent building typology in your city. It also, on an architectural side, it increases the walkability. Essentially what that means is it makes access to nearby amenities and different social constructs quite accessible. You know, walking distance to markets, corner stores. Fantastic typology is the apartment block in working with these methods. Has fantastic socio-economic benefits as well, as covered by Drew early on. So we can have a look at a couple of the different key building materials, which is quite important in understanding how solar will work in with the apartment block. An understanding of building materials means that ourselves and structural engineers alike can begin to understand how solar panels, how solar rooftop systems can become implemented in the apartment block typology. Now, we saw an earlier image before of the solar panels on stilts and arranged in such a method like that. This is a very unusual sight, at least for us, coming from the context of Australia. We're definitely more used to the mounting systems, which we do see everywhere on roadsides and on government buildings. Fantastic installation methods, but you know, we can always get things a little more right. So basically what we're doing is we're seeing how can something like brick with great thermal capacity work in with concrete, which has great structural strength, how these elements can work together in supporting solar panels and supporting different mounting methods. I found quite an interesting statistic whilst looking at the construction of apartment blocks that there was a vulnerability atlas put together in 2007. It was having a look at earthquake risk in Delhi. However, I think it still can be applied and have a look at with solar panels. That out of the 33.8 total buildings, or approximately in 2012, 1.46 were at high risk of catastrophic, failure in the event of an earthquake, and around about 31 of these buildings were also at medium risk of catastrophic destruction in the event of an earthquake. So I think whilst these buildings aren't going to fall down in a normal context, I think it's quite important in getting an understanding of how construction works in Delhi, and also getting an understanding of how something like solar panels can work in this context and really be a real push for good installation methods. I'll just wrap it up by having a quick look at a particular diagram that we made up in Vivek Bihar. Now, we did a satellite imaging measurement as well as a physical on-site measurement, just cross-checking and seeing how these buildings were in compliance with Indian building codes as of 2016. The approximate measurement from the street to the building facade is essential in knowing how high your building can go. So 6.7 metres from the facade through to the road. If we multiply that by 1.5, which is the factor provided by the regulations, we come to a height of 10.1 metres, which we cross-check that with standard heights and standard slab thicknesses. Great news, it complies. So, but the reason this is important with solar panels is that, Glenn will touch on this further, is that it allows a bit of wiggle room for installation of solar panels, not only directly on the roof, but also as a superstructure that you would have seen around. Mustafa will touch on the finer points of that later on, and the technicalities. But yeah, it opens up fantastic opportunities for residential implementation of solar panels. So I'll pass it on to Glenn, and he'll talk about overshadowing.
Thanks, Glenn, and I'm here to talk to you about the specifics of overshadowing. New Delhi sits at about 28 degrees north of the equator, so this means that the summers and winters of the sun pathways are always relatively high in the sky, as seen in this image here. This makes Delhi a prime option for excessive solar energy capture. However, there are some multiple variables that can affect this outcome. These can be things like vegetation, pollution, orientation of the building, and overshadowing, from adjoining buildings. Out of all the areas we surveyed, we selected a small sample to show you today, and just to help you understand how viable these areas are for solar capture. The first sample is Block D, Vivek Bihar. The street is on an angle of 23 degrees from north. All apartments have flat roofs and all range between 3 and 6 stories. As you can see here in the sun study, overshadowing occurs from 3 p.m. onwards. I'll just wait for it to go now. Caused by adjoining buildings. Just a quick note, each jump in time is set at about 1.5 hour intervals. After speaking to some of the owners and the renters, we found out that some of the smaller structures had plans to build up eventually, which would eliminate the overshadowing issues altogether eventually. Regardless of this, the site would still get about 7 to 8 hours of sun per day, which is really good for solar capture. Secondly is Sector 1 in Vishali, which is very similar to the last example. However, the degree of the angle of the street is on 15 degrees, which is actually a lot better than the last example. The heights are roughly the same, and overshadowing occurs from 2 p.m, which is slightly earlier. And yeah, we did also look into the vegetation of nearby trees and whatnot, but we concluded that no trees are high enough to cast shadows or affect solar capture. So in summary, as they start to build up and reach their building cap, they will eliminate all overshadowing issues. And I'll pass it on to Ben now, who's going to talk about infrastructure and environment.
Okay, so can I just get the next slide?
I'll jump over.
28% of people were interested in installing solar panels or already had solar panels installed. And this kind of contrasts with the amount of people we found that were concerned about local air pollution, which came to about 84% when you included people that were stated it was either very polluted or averagely polluted in relation to Delhi as a city. This is quite concerning as well because Delhi is one of the most polluted cities in the world, as I'm sure you're all aware. So as you can see here, I'm going to draw a comparison between 1998 and 2014 as this shows, and you can see a vast increase in the number of parts per metre square found within the air quality in Delhi. Last year the air quality in Delhi actually sat at 143 parts per square metre. Just to draw a contrast, in Perth yesterday we had 19 parts per square meter, so vast difference. This is only going to get worse and worse with climate change, and late last year and around October, the UN actually published an article really in depth about the drastic nature of climate change and what needs to change in India and the surrounding regions. And it stated that monsoons, flooding in monsoons would become worse, droughts in the dry season would become greatly worse, and also the air pollution, as Kristen stated earlier, would double by 2050, which is incredible to think that at the moment it's averaging 143 parts per metre square, meaning that that will become almost 300 parts per metre square by 2050. I'll now go to the next slide. So the benefit of P2P and solar panels is that this can help combat and set back climate change and local air pollution. However, 29% of people stated the cost was a major setback for them in terms of purchasing solar panels. However, 74% of people said that there would be that they would uptake P2P and solar panels given a government incentive, and 16% said that they were also unsure as to whether they would uptake it with a government incentive. But this is interesting because in 2017, the Indian government increased their funding for renewable energy incentives fivefold to $3.7 billion. This raises three questions: whether this is accessible to the people of Vivek Vihar and Vaishali, whether it's enough for the people of Vivek Vihar and Vaishali, and whether it's even known of by these people in their communities. Our Indian partners actually stated that the opinion of what price would be and the actual prices that are out there today are vastly different. So there's not even a knowledge of what the market price is of solar panels and the incentives that are available. And this raises questions about A, marketing, and B, the communication from communities and government to the people that are actually going to be buying these panels and using the incentives that help you buy and trade. So this is an example from SoulShare, which is actually a company out of Bangladesh. And this is a cheap and affordable panel for selling and buying energy. It costs $30 and you can pay it back over 2 to 3 years on a payment plan. And it works with the battery as well, so you can store your energy. But over here, we would clearly need reliable internet connection, as currently a lot of the people that stated out of that 91% that they had reliable access was actually not off Wi-Fi, but off their 4G phones. And you can't obviously hotspot this device when you're out of the house or not around. And so these would either need to have a Wi-Fi connection that's reliable or a 4G connectivity built into the device. I'll now pass you on to Mustafa.
Support in generating renewable energy. However, the area of roofs may not be enough to cater for solar panels to generate enough power in order to the energy consumption of the multifamilies living in the multi-story buildings, apartments. And thus, alternative methods for installing solar panels were laid out to the people who have conducted the survey, and it included wall-mounted panels as well as mobile solar panels. Interestingly, 39 of the people who have conducted the survey preferred having mobile solar panels, and 32 preferred having wall-mounted panels as an addition to the rooftop panels. This could be summed up as 44% are open to having alternative solutions in regard to generating renewable energy. Other alternative suggestions include solar pergola, as you can see on the image down there, which could be a valid option for those who do not have access or enough space on their roofs, as this can be installed on top of the roof, sun decks, balconies, canopies, and any other reliable and sun-exposed places. Furthermore, we have realized that energy consumption is alternatively higher during summer in comparison to winter, and that is due to the reliance on mechanical heating and cooling systems, where above 95% of the people who conducted the survey rely on AC units to cooling during summer, and only less than 5% have actually HVAC systems installed, when it is known that HVAC systems are reasonably more energy efficient than AC units. This raised the point that we should indeed focus on ways of conserving energy rather than just generating renewable energy. This could be achieved by implementing passive design techniques and bioclimatic architecture in order to avoid the reliance on mechanical ventilation, as well as using natural lighting rather than artificial lighting. This is the end of the presentation. We'd like to thank you all for welcoming us in your country, India. We've had a really great time, and thank you so much for listening to us today.